Hello everyone, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of We Want to Talk podcast where we want to talk to you about everything. I'm Kaylin.
And I'm Alyssa.
And we're your hosts. Guys, Halloween is around the corner.
Yes, it's coming so soon.
We were talking about this in the last episode that we freaking love this time of year. Like these holidays, the Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, but Halloween has the spooky vibes. You have the scary movies.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. All the good stuff. So, we're trying to dive a little into the
Halloween spirit?
Yeah, the Halloween spirit. That's a good word for it. Yeah, excited about today's episode. But before we get into that, once again, make sure you follow us on socials, wherever you're listening to. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. If you're listening to the podcast version, we do have this available on YouTube as well. And if you're listening to YouTube, then we also have the Apple and the Spotify version. If you want to listen to us in the car, that's my favorite time to listen to podcasts is in the car.
Yeah. The vibes.
I freaking love it. Okay. So, we just love to throw that out there. But, honestly, we're really excited about today's episode. So, we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. So, as you can probably tell by the title of today's episode, we're sharing creepy stories.
And I have not heard these.
She hasn't heard them. So, you might remember, like a month or so ago, at this point, it might have actually been like 2 months ago, but we did an episode of embarrassing stories, and we loved that. We feel like it's like a good break to kind of share some fun stuff like that. So, we really wanted to have a guest for today's episode, but because when we recorded this, it was a few weeks ago, and so we've been really busy. We didn't have time to get someone in to do this as a guest with us. So sadly, Alyssa's going to be the only one hearing these for the first time. But you will still hear our true reactions because, trust me, I have some things to say about some of these stories too.
I'm ready.
I'm so ready. We got our blankets. We got our sweatshirts on.
Ready to go. Cozied up.
We should have made coffees.
Oh, yeah. That sounds good.
Dang it. It's okay. Okay, y'all. So let's dive right on into it. Once again, if you didn't listen to the one about embarrassing stories, what's going to happen is I'm going to read a story. It might be a little bit long, so please just bear with me. And then after I read the story, Alyssa and I will discuss it. So I do want to give a couple of trigger warnings. There's a couple of these. None of these go into like great detail, but one of these mentions rape. There's some almost kidnapping stories in here. There's some paranormal stories. So if that type of stuff freaks you out or you are sensitive to those topics, then this might not be the podcast for you. So, okay, let me get a sip of water before we do this. Oh my goodness. Okay,
without further ado, let's do it.
Let's do it. Story number 1 is titled, "It Wasn't a Little Girl." I was camping with my husband and his family at a small remote lake in New Mexico. There were about 10 people in our group and another group of 6 people in the next campsite. It was nighttime and both groups were doing typical activities, making s'mores, having a few drinks, and telling stories, when we all heard what sounded like a little girl yelling out for help. Neither group had children with them, and we were all positive we were hearing a little girl and decided to search the area we heard the noises from. There was a field behind our campsite, and we saw a very tall, pure white figure standing maybe 100 feet away from us in the field, making the noises. We all agreed this thing looked maybe 6 feet tall, skinny, and white as can be. We made our way closer to investigate, but whatever it was that we saw started backing off as we got closer, and it disappeared into the trees. All night, we continued to hear a little girl calling for help as we tried to sleep.
That's it? That's the end of the story?
Yes, that's the end of the story.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
That's so terrifying. I wonder if that really happened, like if that's true.
I don't know. To me, I don't know. It's so crazy because I just saw a TikTok similar to this morning. The girl, it was like a couple of girl roommates all living together, and their dogs started going crazy and barking, and they didn't know what it was. And they have a Ring camera in their living room. When we get off this, I'm going to show you the video. I meant to show you before, but I completely forgot. But in the beginning of the video, she shows the dogs barking in the living room and then being like, "What are y'all barking at?" And then she shows the view from her backyard, the camera from her backyard. And then the third clip is the zoomed in version. And there's literally what looks like like, it doesn't even look like a person. Like, it looks like a spirit. Like, it looks like a body, but it doesn't look like a solid figure.
Right.
And it just moves in the trees and then just disappears.
No.
And that's what this story reminded me
And the little
of.
girl
And
screaming.
oh my gosh. Like, but I almost, in this case, it makes me wonder if it was someone. But then it's like, in the night, it would have been dark. Like, the person would have been dark. I mean, whether they were a white person or not, but at nighttime, it would have been a dark figure.
But for it to be white, like, lit up. Like, they could see that.
Freaky.
That is freaky. I hope I never encounter anything like that, because it will keep me up.
First of all, I'm never going camping in the woods.
That's true, too. I would go camping. You want to go camping?
I don't think so.
I mean, not in, like, a tent, but, like, a camper.
Okay, a camper, which I still would be freaking scared, dude. I've watched too much Criminal Minds. I've listened to too many podcasts. Like, I am deathly afraid of stuff like that. Like we were just talking about in the last episode, I'm not trying to die young, okay?
That's true, but camping, I don't know.
I know camping can definitely be harmless, but I'm just like, bears, crazy people in the woods, ghosts.
Yeah, but you can lock a camper. Yeah, I would feel safe in a camper. Maybe not.
I would feel safe in a camper. I would definitely do a camper over a tent. I would not do a tent.
Oh yeah, I can't do a tent. There's no way.
Okay, I should have said this before I started reading these, but these first couple of ones are going to be like ghost stories, and then the ones after that are going to be stalkers, and then the last few ones are going to be like a kidnapper type story. Okay. So I should have told you that before but okay. Next story.
Let's do it.
I was driving across country with my mom and sister when I was 16, and my sister was 21. It was late, but we were well rested, still, and alert. We were driving along an interstate and needed gas and a bathroom break, so we stopped at the only rest stop within 200 miles. There was a van full of teenagers on a road trip at the gas station, as well as a small gray car parked at the pump in front of us with two men standing still outside of it. When we got there, everything felt wrong. We had been on the road for days, and there were many rest stops at night, and we had never been afraid until then. My mom and sisters went inside, and I stayed in the car. I heard the teenagers say they were creeped out and couldn't get the pump to work, and they left in a hurry. I was watching the car in front of us, and the two men had not moved at all. Not an inch. They weren't talking. They were on phones. They were just standing there, still as stone. My sister and mom came running back out to the car, and when they got in, the two men slowly turned to look at us while not moving or pivoting the rest of their bodies. And I swear to... we all saw the same thing. They had eyes dark as pitch and empty. Truly empty. Not black, not reflecting any light at all, just a void. We sped out of there and didn't stop until we were in the next city. The worst thing about the entire experience, we couldn't find the place on any map. We knew exactly which spot on the interstate to look, but we couldn't find it on Google Maps or any paper map we had. We even asked locals about the creepy gas station out on the stretch of road and got only confused looks. We've traveled on that interstate since, and there's no rest stop.
You're joking. No.
Glitch in the Matrix. Glitch in the Matrix.
Have you been seeing those TikToks about the glitch in the Matrix? That is so
and
crazy.
That's almost kind of what this reminded me of. It's like, or I don't know, like what? How? Because it's like you don't want to believe that people make these types of stories up.
I know. That is crazy.
This is crazy. And then the rest stop was just gone. Or it makes you wonder, like, oh my gosh, what is that family? I think I listened to the Killer Instinct episode, but there was this family who, like, all, like, went missing. All went missing. Like, they were all seen leaving town, went missing. The police couldn't find them. Family and friends couldn't find them. And then all of a sudden, like, a few months later, the whole family just shows back up and pretends like nothing happened. They didn't know where they had been, and a lot of people believe that they might have got, I'm gonna probably call this the wrong thing, but the something oxide poisoning from their house. Maybe they had some like chemicals out that they didn't know about, and they got the poisoning where they like go crazy and like glitch out basically, and people wonder if like their family like disappeared for like a while because they were like cracked out or something. But it's stuff like that that's just like, makes you wonder, like, what the heck happened.
What would you do in that situation? I don't even know what I would do.
Oh, I'd be so scared, especially if I traveled back on the interstate and then didn't see the rest stop when I traveled back on it. Like, how how the freak did y'all find it in the first place?
I know. That's true, too. But I guess they just drove by it, or...
I don't know. I don't know, dude.
That's a freaky one.
It's the paranormal ones that really creep me out.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
There's no explanations for what's going on. It's just...
Not at all. Not at all.
Creepy. Okay.
Okay, next one. When I was 37, I went to my high school reunion. I flew into the nearest airport and rented a car. The distance was about 35 miles through a rural and almost abandoned part of the country. About 3 miles outside of town, I see someone on the side of the road flagging me down. It turned out that it was one of the guys I had attended school with, Jim. Not actually his name. This is just the name he uses.
Okay.
In the story, Jim gets in the car and we start talking. I had not seen him in 20 years, but he still looked the same, maybe a little older. We get to town and I ask him if he wants to come to the VFW and have a drink. He says, no, just take me home. Jim's parents had lived only a few blocks from my grandmother's house, and I turned in that direction, but he said to take him to the outskirts of town. There was a mobile home park out there, and I figured that is where he lived. When we reached the end of the turn, he just said, drop me off here, it was good to see you again, and walks off into the night. I go to the VFW, met some of my old classmates, and we started to talk. As we were talking about who was coming to the reunion, I mentioned that I had just picked up Jim 3 miles east of town and had dropped him off. Everyone gets quiet, even the guy singing karaoke stops and lays down the mic. My cousin goes white as a new t-shirt. Barb, Jim died on that curve 8 years ago. Rolled his car. We were all at his funeral, I was told. I started to feel really dizzy. I went out to the car to take some deep breaths. There on the seat is the local newspaper printed 8 years previous containing Jim's obituary. I still have the paper.
Stop
I have
it.
chills.
See,
I
do
chills.
too. But you have to believe stories like that. Like, there's no way someone would make something like that up. That is...
The fact that it happened on the curve where the guy died.
Yeah.
I literally have chills. Like, I feel like I could throw up right now. Like, that creeps me out so much.
And she was having conversation with him. They were talking.
Conversation.
It's not like she imagined him getting into the car and they were just quiet. Like...
Yeah. Like, this is crazy. And, like, dude, stuff like this just blows my mind. I feel like this is something like you would see in a movie or from a show or something like that.
That's where my mind goes to. But you have to, there's no way you can tell me that stuff like that isn't real. Like, stuff like that isn't happen.
Like, because how do people would make this type of stuff up? But,
right.
You know, we're going into this podcast believing that every single one of these stories are real because that's just what makes it even creepier, okay?
Yes.
It's Halloween. These are all real stories. We don't want to hear any of your negative juju, okay? Freaking be unrealistic for a minute. But this was just crazy to me.
That is a good one. That's crazy.
Yeah, that was a good one. Okay, this one's a little bit longer. This one, I'm going into a little bit more of the stalker stories, so bear with me. Like I said, this one's a little bit longer, but...
Okay, let's go.
When I was 19, I met this guy who worked at a Subway nearby where I worked. He was a nice enough guy, and he took me out on a date. Everything started off really well, but about a week into it, he started asking me for money. It started off small at first, like for a soda or $5 for gas, and then he started asking for larger amounts, like a few hundred to get him by for a week or so. I never gave it to him, but he started wanting to move in together within about 2 weeks of dating. When we would go out places, he started to do very weird things. He would start screaming in public or singing nonsense at the top of his lungs. He would always play around afterward that he was just having fun, but it was weird and embarrassing to be seen with him. Also, my dog, who loves everyone, would not let him near me. I've never seen that dog so much as growl at another person, but he would try and bite the crap out of him whenever he came close to me. By the end of the second week, I broke up with him over the phone. I normally didn't do that, but at the time, his erratic behavior made me nervous. He completely flipped the F out. He started showing up where I worked to the point where my manager had to ban him from the building and coworkers walked me to my car. He would show up literally everywhere I was, even to the grocery store or the gas station. I started getting text messages and weird emails about how we were meant to be and he couldn't live without me and such. Then one day he showed up in the middle of the night and told me to come outside. I told him to leave or I was going to call the cops. He literally started sobbing to the point where he was almost hyperventilating and went back inside and locked up the house. The next day, I was home alone and just doing some work. At the time, I was in college when I heard some rustling by the front door. I thought it was just the dog messing around or the mailman or something, but the dog started barking and growling. The door began to ring. I didn't think much of it, probably just a solicitor. Then someone started messing with the door handle. I grabbed a broom of all things because that was all I had and heard someone open the door. My dog tried to bite him and I locked myself in the bathroom and started screaming that I called the police. He up and ran away. I called my neighbor who lived across the street from me and was former military. He checked out the house and made sure he was gone. My dog had a few scrapes and cuts on him, but he was okay. I filed for a restraining order the next day and my dad took the liberty of calling his father and explaining what happened. I received a few other emails from him following that, but he never came to my house again. Luckily, I've moved hours away and married now, but it was still very frightening at the time considering this was only about a 3-week period.
This is crazy. Okay, first red flag is moving in together.
Yeah, but they didn't, though. He just wanted them to. They didn't move in together.
Oh, okay.
You have to remember, this is only within 3 weeks. He asked her after 2 weeks to move in, and at that point, she broke up with him because she was like, okay, no, you're kind of crazy.
Okay. Yeah, what the...
This one was crazy to
This
me.
is also why, if you're a girl, get a gun and stay protected. Because you never know.
And I feel so bad I feel bad even saying anything about it because there were stories of this happening to men too. But it's just crazy because as a person, you want to go on dates and you want to be trusted and you want to use Tinder and you want to be able to go to the bar and talk to a random person or go to Subway and give the guy your number because you think he's hot. But then stuff like this
people are
happens,
crazy nowadays.
And people are literally insane.
Yeah. Imagine, I mean, she's married with kids now, but imagine he finds her.
I know.
It sounds like a movie.
Just wait. There's another story that is going to be, actually, I don't remember. I had to have screenshotted it. But I hope I did. But it was very similar to that. So I really hope I did. But if not, then
it's okay.
It'll be okay.
Yeah.
I might have just seen it and then decided to not screenshot it. But yeah, stuff like this, freaking insane.
Yeah. You cannot trust anyone.
No, you really can't. Okay, moving on to the next story. This one is a little disturbing. I'm going to pre-warn you.
No.
There's a sentence I'm going to say in here that you are going to cringe. It is so disturbing.
I'm not ready.
One day when I was in high school, I was walking to school as I usually did when a white van pulls over. Now, I lived in a pretty bad neighborhood, and I don't usually go near cars that pull over near me. He kept saying, "Excuse me." The only reason I responded at all was because he looked like my math teacher for a second. I quickly realized it wasn't him, and when I said, "What?" he said, "Look." He was masturbating over his pants with a huge heart on. So I walked faster and he follows me in his car while still masturbating. I crossed the street and he tried to turn and go the other direction, but it didn't work since he would just pass me going the other way. I told a teacher about it when I got to school. He pulled over 3 other separate times. One time when I was with my friend and she almost fell for it and I had to grab her hand and tell her to just keep walking. Finally, I wrote down his license plate and reported him and haven't seen him since.
People are nasty. That is so bad.
It reminds me, remember the girls that went to Miami? And this was trending on TikTok. Wow, I think it was around spring break. But they went to Miami for spring break and they were in Starbucks and the guy was following them around masturbating in Starbucks.
And they recorded it in Starbucks. Literally in Starbucks.
Like, disgusting.
Himself. They can't help themselves.
But this man was doing it in a van.
But I wonder how she even knew that was what... I mean, if he was driving.
He probably had his windows down and she could see. Like, if he was pulled over on the side of the road and someone's like, look, and you looked in their window, you would be able to see.
That is so awful.
Like, that is disgusting.
She was walking to school. Like, you can't even walk to school.
And it makes you wonder, like, this could have been the bare minimum for him where he was just starting. If she wouldn't have reported him, who knew when he would finally maybe kidnap and rape a girl.
Do something else.
Do something else. And so it's just stuff like this. Like, this is like a traumatic experience.
Yes.
But it could have been way worse.
This is why you're told to not talk to strangers and be aware of your surroundings.
And oh my gosh, I understand where we lived, no one really lived like close enough to where you could walk to school. Like, I feel like we didn't really have anyone that walked to school.
No.
And I know in like the county where you live now, like Winter Robins, like there are people who could totally walk to school.
Oh yeah.
There's neighborhoods right across from the school. Our school didn't really have neighborhoods like right across from it. Like, they were surrounding it, but not to where someone would walk to school, and the roads weren't really that safe. Like, they didn't really have sidewalks or anything. But I know, like, in schools like Winter Robins, that's like
the schools are surrounded by neighborhoods.
normal thing.
Yeah.
And that is just insane to me, thinking that you could send your daughter or your son off to walk to school, and a man in a van stops them and is jacking off to them.
And there's no telling how many times he had done that before.
Yes. Ugh. I'm
It's
disgusted.
so frustrating.
So freaking disgusting. Ugh. Next story.
Okay.
I almost got kidnapped, but didn't realize it until years later. So I'd say I was around 10 years old, and my family decides to take the dog for a walk. I decide I want to rollerblade and make big circles around my family as they walk. At one point, I end up a block ahead of my family, and a rusty beat-up truck pulls up and stops. A dude jumps out. I remember him having a super short beard. He says, "Hey kid, check this out." And he pulls out a skateboard and rides it on the street and says, "Pretty cool skateboard, huh, kid? You want it?" I, being completely happy with my rollerblades, say, "No, thank you." He says, "Come on, it's free. Just come on over here and take it." And I say, "No, I like my rollerblades." At this point, he looks down the street and sees my family walking up the street. Without saying anything to me, he throws his skateboard in the back, jumps in his truck, and drives away. I never thought it was weird, didn't tell my parents, and in my head, it was some dude tried to give me a skateboard I didn't want. 10 years later, I'm like, holy F. Thank God I didn't effing like skateboards.
First of all, it's 10 years later, and they remember that happened?
It reminds me of, like, stories on Criminal Minds where the kids at the park and the guy, like, lures
him in with, like, a dog or something.
Yes. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, like, seriously, this is another one of these things where it's, like, such a close call. And you're like, literally, anything could have happened to this kid. But because this kid liked
said
rollerblades,
no to skateboard.
It said no to a skateboard.
That is crazy. They didn't even realize what was going on. That's so sad.
I know. Oh my gosh. So creepy. This one.
The rollerblades saved that kid's life.
No, but seriously. And what also is like, I feel so bad because also this was posted 10 years ago. So 10 years before that.
20 years ago. It would be 2000.
This happened 20 years ago. Yeah, so early 2000. You know, kidnapping was a thing, but you didn't really see it as or hear about it as much as you do, like, now. I feel like
do you think,
like, you see it on, well, I just mean that, like, you see it more on news stations now.
Oh, yeah.
See it, like, happening on your phone and stuff like that. And so, like, this family member probably wasn't worried about their kid being a block ahead of them, but even this is just such, like, a random story to share, but when we went to the beach, literally absolutely nothing happened. But we were walking this path to this boat when we went to Cape San Blas. And if you've ever been to Cape San Blas, you know what boat I'm talking about. It's literally a shipwreck. And it just like washed up on shore. And it's been there, and it's just like a staple there now. But you have to walk a good couple miles to get to it. And when we were walking to it, Jace kept walking so far ahead of us. And me and my stepmom were getting so mad at him. And we're like, stop walking so far ahead of us. And him being, at the time, a 14-year-old boy is like probably sitting there thinking like, will y'all freaking leave me alone? Like, I'm fine. But then you read stuff like this and like, this is why you don't want people going too far from you.
Yeah.
This is why it freaks you out.
You think it's harmless.
Yes. Like, because we were walking along, like, the woods, kind of, and, like, anyone could have been and just snatched him. And, it's just stuff like this that just opens your eyes, and you're like, oh, my gosh.
The reality of it is so sad.
Yes, creeps me out. Okay. Next story. Oh, this is one. Your jaw is going to drop.
Let's do it.
Mine was because before I start this was like a thread. Someone was like, what is something catastrophic that has almost happened to you? So someone said, mine was a few months after I turned 21. I'm from India and frequently make trips from my house in Bombay to one in another state around 100 kilometers away. It's a 20-hour journey, but I prefer buses over trains. I've been doing it for 15 years and always booked the exact same seat, 4 seats down from the driver on his side. This particular time, though, I booked my ticket late and instead got a seat on the opposite side of the bus. We had just stopped for dinner, and once done, I got back to my seat and settled down with a book. As soon as we turned back on the highway, there was a big thud and a lot of dust and glass flying around. Turns out a truck rammed into the side of the bus. No one was hurt more than a few scratches. However, in my usual seat, there was a lady about 5 feet tall, and there was a huge block of wood that was stuck over her head. If I'd gotten in that seat, I'd have been decapitated. It was quite a WTF moment and gave me some perspective on life.
Ah, chill bumps. I know my legs. That's so
Could
crazy.
you imagine witnessing that?
No, absolutely not.
That's like
You'll never be the same. You'll never walk away from that the same person.
That's like thinking for like another example being like, let's say you're driving down the road and a log truck goes through your passenger seat, and let's say that day like your husband almost drives with you, or he almost drove and you almost sat in the passenger seat, and like you would have died if that happened. Like that is freaking insane.
The world has crazy ways of working. That is so crazy.
I mean, at least the woman wasn't injured, but
she was short
how tall
enough.
She was
right.
She would have been
right.
That gave me the creeps. Next story. This one's also not too long, but a little.
Okay,
long.
let's do it.
When I was about 7 years old, my twin, an older brother, and I had gone with a family friend to go to his mother's house. This was nothing out of the ordinary, as we had gone with this man on several such occasions prior. We were living somewhere in Nevada at the time, nearest the California border. He had asked my parents if it was okay for him to take the 3 of us for a visit, and my parents said yes. I'm not really sure at what time we left, but we never made it to his mother's house. I was looking forward to seeing her cat again. We drove for hours, my brother, sister, and I in the back seat. This man didn't stop to let us out for a bathroom break, and he didn't have anything other than beer for us to drink, and he was drinking as well. After another hour or so of driving, he got pulled over. He told us not to say anything to the officers. They approached his vehicle and could smell the beer coming off of him in waves. They noticed us in the back seat and asked if we were his. He, of course, said yes. The officers didn't believe him, thank God. They asked him to step out of the car and placed him under arrest. He followed them the entire time until they had clubbed him into submission just to get him into the back of the cruiser. Another CHP showed up and took us with him to a foster home where we stayed until our parents could come and pick us up later. It wasn't until 15 years later that I learned that the man had pedophilic intentions with the 3 of us. I never thought anything of the fact that he didn't bring any of my other older brothers with us. When the officers asked him why that was, he simply replied that the other brother would have talked.
So this was a family friend.
A family friend that they hung out with frequently, that I guess had finally warmed himself up to the family enough to where he was
trusted to take them.
And he basically kidnapped them, lied about where he was taking them, and had pedophilic, am I pronouncing that right? Pedophilic intentions with them.
I think so, yeah. It's just another one of those situations where you can't trust anyone around you, especially when it comes to your kids. Like,
no, oh my gosh, I read this and it made me sick to my stomach. Especially, can you imagine the guilt that the parents felt over that?
Yeah, letting him
trust someone into your kids' lives, and then they do something like this. Like, Oh,
And how did they find
gosh.
out 15 years later that those were the intentions?
Maybe the parents finally told them.
Oh, yeah.
The parents probably didn't want to tell them as kids.
That's true.
You know, depending on, because, yeah, he was 7 years old.
Man.
You don't really want...
That is so disgusting.
Yeah, and you don't want to really, even though I feel like, gosh, I feel like the parents should have told them when it happened. I mean, even being 7 years old, I don't know about you, but I'm very adamant about the fact that at a young age, I will teach my kids what their private parts are.
Yeah.
They will know that no one is supposed to touch it. They will know what all
Educate
of this
them.
stuff is.
Right.
My kids will be educated at a young age because, I mean, heck, it's one of those things where you don't know where this could have went. If these kids would have known and, like, caught on to what was happening, could they have stopped it?
Could they have done something?
If they would have said something, would it have made the situation worse? You know, so
Right.
I guess this is one of those things where it really is hard to really say, but, like, at least the kids would have known and not been educated about it 15 years later.
Yeah, that feels a little... I don't know, but they're also so young. I don't know.
Yeah, I have a little...
I don't know what I would do in
mixed
that
emotions.
situation, yeah.
Yeah, I have mixed emotions about that. Okay, next story. When I was about 3 or 4 years old, I was watching TV in the basement with my dad while my mom was out with her friends. We heard the door open upstairs and someone walking around. My dad told me to go upstairs and say hi to my mom, and being lazy, I refused. A few hours later, my mom came home, and she asked my dad if he had moved some stuff in our house because it was missing. We had been robbed. If I hadn't been so lazy, I would have gone upstairs and the guys might have taken me too. He also might have seen that someone was home and fled, but the other option is really scary to think about.
Well, not even taking him. He could have hurt him. He could have done anything.
Yes.
That is wild.
But the fact that they were in the basement and the robbers didn't go down into the basement is insane. But I'm also like,
the TV was
why
on?
did the dad say go tell your mom hi, but then the dad didn't go up there? Like, that's crazy to me. And then it's like a few hours later the mom came home. I just have so many questions about this story.
Yeah.
Like, I believe them, but I just have so many questions about this.
Well,
about
it could have also been that the dad had seen the mom that day, but the kid hadn't. Maybe the kid wasn't home, so he was like, go tell your mom, hey, you haven't seen her.
Yeah.
But why would the kid refuse? And the dad was just like, okay, well, you don't have
whatever.
to. And then the mom never came downstairs, and they didn't think anything of it. Like, 2 hours later, the mom's not there. Or, like, they haven't heard from her, and they think she's just been home the whole time.
I don't know, bro. This one
There's a lot of unanswered questions with that one.
100%. But
there's also a lot of what ifs.
This isn't an answer to the question, but someone responded back with a similar story.
Okay.
It said, I also avoided confrontation with robbers. When I was in high school, I took courses at the college 40 minutes away, and the pizza joint where I worked was relatively nearby. Sometimes on days I had a huge gap between class and work, or no work in the afternoon, evening at all, I would go home and take a nap. Pretty much naked. One day, I had a long gap, but decided I needed to go get some new shoes for work, so I didn't end up going home that day. I got a call from my mom as I was trying on shoes that someone had broken into the house. If I hadn't decided to go buy shoes that day, the 2 to 3 men who broke in would have come across me in the back bedroom, a 17-year-old girl sleeping and nude. Yikes.
That is just so crazy. You can't... Man.
Like, I'm almost speechless reading some of these because, like, oh my gosh,
You
the
just
fact that
never
people,
know.
I've personally, at least not that I know of, have been in a situation like this.
Not that you know of, I guess.
Yeah, not that I know of. I've never been in a situation like this. And so, this to me is just...
Unexplainable.
It's crazy. Like, the fact that you almost went home to go take a nap naked, because, I mean, I feel like it's kind of normal as a girl to go home, and when I take naps, I take my pants off and my bra off.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still in a shirt and underwear, but still.
Right.
In very minimum clothing. And these guys break in, and you could have been asleep with no one there to protect you, because being a 17-year-old girl, what are you going to do?
Right. That is It's just crazy.
So freaking crazy, dude.
That's God.
So freaking crazy. Okay, y'all. This is the last story, and this one is also just another jaw dropper.
Let's go. Let's do it, Maddie.
When I was about 12, my mom had a friend with an absolutely awful daughter. She was half my age, but a complete little brat. Thinking, breaking my things, giggling when I was upset, lying about me to get me in trouble, the full works. And my mom, for some idiotic reason, thought she was cool for making me put up with this amusement of her friend. At the time, I wasn't living with my mother. I only visited on the weekends or over school vacations. The little girl stayed over a lot when I was not there and considered my room to be her room. So when she came over when I was there, she would demand that I vacate my room so she could sleep in my bed, etc. As I was older, my mother always forced me to do what she wanted, which only made her brattier and more demanding. To sum it up, I hated her. Over spring break, we had plans to go fishing. On the way to the lake, we drove right by the apartment complex where the little girl lived. My mom decides that it would be a great idea to stop and take her along. She pulls into the parking lot, and I make it very, very clear that I do not want to deal with her. This trip was supposed to be a family thing, and if we are taking her along with us, I want to go home, etc. My mom is disgusted, tells me what a big baby I am, and tries to make me go with her to knock on the door. I start crying, make my mom mad enough that she blows up on me, and we pull away without ever even getting out of the car. The babysitter/mother's boyfriend had just murdered the little girl and had fashioned hammer knives with the plan of killing anyone who came along in the meantime. Had we gone to the door, we likely would have been killed.
I have chill bumps again. That is really something that you would read in a book or see in a movie.
Yes!
That is crazy.
The fact that he literally saved his life by hating the girl. I mean, which he obviously doesn't feel guilty about, even though she died, but...
Oh, so it was a he.
This was a guy, yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was.
I don't think it was said.
Yeah, I guess they didn't really say.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm
It
not really
could've
sure,
been either.
but the way that...
But imagine if they could have gotten there sooner and saved the little girl's life, too.
I agree with that, but if they would have gotten there sooner, who knows if the guy would have killed them too.
Yeah, that's true, too.
Because whoever, the mother's boyfriend, babysitter, whatever, obviously had clear intentions of killing this child.
Oh, it's so disgusting, so vile.
So crazy, y'all. Like, I don't know.
It's just one of those unexplainable situations.
Yes. I was telling Alyssa about it, but I really tried looking for this one story. I really, really wanted to read y'all, but I could not find it. I searched everything I could think to be able to pull it up to y'all, but there was this one Reddit story that Mike and I heard one day, and it was this girl home, and I forgot where she said she lived. I want to say it was in California, but, you know, this serial killer I'm about to say was all over the place, so I can't remember exactly where, but she heard someone trying to get into her window, her house window. Like, she heard the window being jiggled, and she ignored it. I'm pretty sure she had called the cops, and she ended up finding out, I don't remember if it was a couple days later or a week later, that another girl in that neighborhood had been killed, and it was Ted Bundy who had done it. Like, she had almost gotten murdered by Ted Bundy.
Mind-blowing.
But because her window was
so
locked,
crazy.
and he couldn't get in her window, it didn't happen
It wasn't
to her.
her.
Freaking insane.
I have no words. It's just like, you just never know.
No words. And I know this doesn't really go along with creepy stories, but if you're really into true crime and stuff like that, Alyssa and I absolutely love listening to Savannah Brahmer with Killer Instincts. And no, this is not an ad. She does not even know who we are. But we just genuinely love her podcast so much, and
she does a great job.
Such a good job. She tells you the facts. She doesn't go too deep on her personal opinion. She just tells you the facts of the story, discusses it with you, and it's so freaking good. And I actually, which this is creepy too, so that's even what made me think to mention her, bringing up serial killers. But some of you might know who Robert Hansen is, and I was just thinking about him this morning because a classmate posted and was like, if I can tell like which one of y'all is like new to like listening to true crime, because if you think Jeffrey Dahmer is Disturbed, then you must have never heard of Robert Hansen, John Wayne Gacy, and people like that. And I don't know if you ever listened to the Killer Instinct episode with Robert Hansen, but he is a guy who would tell people that he was flying them. I want to say he would tell them he was taking them to like a vacation island or something. It's been a minute since I heard it, so I don't remember it word from word, but he would fly them on his private plane to this island that was his island, and there were a lot of woods. They had no way of escaping, and he would release them on the island and hunt his victims.
No. Oh
Hunt
my
his
gosh.
victims. I feel like we need to listen to it after this.
I haven't.
So you can
I
hear,
haven't heard
because
that one.
it is insane. It made me sick to my stomach listening to it, and I just couldn't imagine fighting for my life in the woods.
Once again, sounds like something out of a movie.
Yes.
Like it didn't even happen.
It's so crazy, but okay, y'all. It's been a long day of podcast recording, so Alyssa and I are about to enjoy the rest of our day and get out of this negative juju and
I know. I need to
creepiness.
clear my mind.
Oh, we need to go on a walk or something outside in the sunlight. And
I'm gonna have nightmares tonight.
Okay, y'all. Once again, y'all already know the drill. Make sure you're following us on social media, and wherever you're listening, please make sure you like, subscribe, and share. We are so thankful for you. Thank you for listening. And with that being said, we will see y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye, friends.